Welcome to our study on the book of Romans. This is Sonship Orientation, and this is session 49. I'm really excited to get us into this one today. You're going to enjoy this one. We're really going to have some fun today. We've been observing the measure of a son's commitment to his education. We went over to Proverbs, and we were looking at those and how you're going to have a commitment to the education and then a commitment to the edification. Right now, we're just looking at the commitment to the education. Someone want to tell me what that first, and that commitment gets measured in 3 different ways. Somebody want to tell me what that first measure is? Honest attendance. Very good. The more you do this, that's great, because that means you're just able to recall that right off the top of your head. What's the second one? Okay, interactive learning. And we have put that one to rest as well. We finished that up last week, and we actually got into the third one. Does anybody remember what that third one was? The top priority. Now, I know, now look, let me give you this now. I am not telling you that right here and now today that you need to be looking at all 3 of those and saying to yourself, yes, if you do, that's great. But I'm saying I'm not expecting anybody to look at all 3 of those and say, all that those things entail are actually in me right now. Let me tell you why I'm not expecting that. Because right now, all we're doing is noticing them back in Proverbs where they were first laid out for Israel's education. But it is not until we get into Romans 8 and that material, because the whole rest of that chapter from Romans, we started this thing in Romans 8 verses 14 and 15, but when you take it from there and go all the way through the end of the chapter, and I want to say that's about verse 39, something like that, when you take that through the rest of the chapter, that is the doctrine that produces these 3 things. And that's going to be done in several different ways. But as we go through that chapter, just like we've gone through every other chapter up to now in Romans, it's going to be to produce these 3 things in you. And what you'll find out is those are being produced in you right there for a very particular reason. And we're going to discuss that reason today. It's important for you to understand what that reason really is. Now, I need to do this and see if I can. Oh, I should have done this beforehand, so I know we're on camera, but I'm just going to plug this back in and, oh, well, you know what? Turn it on, Michael. That'd be great. There it is. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I should have done that beforehand. Okay, let's take a look at this first verse, and we'll get ourselves into this third measure of the top priority. Proverbs 2:4. If thou seekest her as silver and searchest for her as for hid treasures. There's that third if clause. So now introduced to this, here's what we know, and we talked about this at the end of last week's lesson, that we talked about the silver and we talked about the hid treasures. Silver, I want you to think of, and I think this is what we're being directed to, as money. Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, and that's not the only mention of that in the Scripture. You'll find silver in exchange. You say, well, gold could have been used. Yeah, but you know what? People didn't carry gold around. There may have been some gold coins, but you know what? By and large, those were silver. And in fact, really, in my lifetime, there was a time when I was a kid, if you got change somewhere, you might have gotten a silver dime in that change. And now, not anymore. If you get it now, somebody made a mistake. But you got silver in those coins, and there was actual value to that coin because the silver was in there. You can buy gold coins today, But you know what? You don't carry those around for legal tender much, do you? Okay. So, anyway, here's my point. It is directing us to money, but it's going to be directing us to money for a reason. Now, there's several things I want to say right off the bat. How important is money to us? Very. Because that's how you live. We say this all the time. Unfortunately, it takes money to live. You have to eat. It's nice to be able to know that you got a roof over your head and clothes on your back. And in this day, you've got to have wheels. You got to have everything is so spread out. If you're talking about hooking up the horses and the wagon, do you know how long it would take you to get in here from Cayenosa? In a wagon? What is that, 30 miles? 2 days? It would, wouldn't it? That's most of your week just coming in here and going back. Here's my point, which is, by the way, in the old days, why folks would come in for Sunday services in the morning, stay for a dinner on the grounds. They'd have some little deal following that, and then everybody go home. And preachers get up and say, well, in the old days, they used to stay at church all day long. It's because it took them 4 hours to get in there. You couldn't leave after the Sunday morning service and get back for Sunday night. That was not very efficient. Anyway, sorry. Here's the deal. That money is important, and it takes that to exist. Here's what he says by this. It's an analogy. Remember, this is the book of Proverbs after all. So because it's Proverbs, you would expect some analogies, wouldn't you? So however important your silver is, that's how important this measure says. I want you to see it as that important. Do you know why we work jobs? Our jobs often become a top priority for us. Do you know why we work jobs? Because if you don't work, you don't have any money. Huh? You get welfare. Okay, well, okay. Well, but I'm just saying, it's tough. It's tough. Okay, so now I'm using the article the, instead of the article a, and I'm going to show you why. And that's why I told you, don't worry about if you look at these right now and go, well, look, this is important. It is not the top priority to me. You haven't been through the doctrine that produces that yet. So don't panic about that. But I do want to show you something today that is going to show you why this is the top priority. And you'll see something about that. Now, I told you last time, and this is the part I really wanted us to get to, that as you go through this education and these measures are all being met, you are going to you're going to be allowed to purchase some things with the wisdom that you get from this education. Now, someone's listening to the DVD, and for that reason, I'm going to make sure we don't swing the pendulum here. I'm not talking about purchasing things like new cars or homes. I think that's a given, but there's always somebody that wants to take this to the extreme. So I just want to settle that issue now. But you are going to be able to purchase things, and the Bible is actually going to call this merchandise. We're going to get to that today. In fact, pretty much all we're going to do today is going to be beginning to enumerate the things that you're going to be able to purchase with this education. We're going to we'll list as many as we can, but I guarantee you we're not going to get them all done, so we'll do some more of this next time. And I want you to see what some of this merchandise. Now, when you think of merchandise, what do you think of? Okay, Gloria says stuff. Okay, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you think of all kinds of things, don't you? A variety of things. I mean, it could be appliances, or it could be furniture, or it could, well, there's a variety of things that you're going to be able to purchase to yourself. Not only are you going to be able to do that, your Father expects you to do that. And you're going to be able, through this education, to actually, through the wisdom that you get, to take that wisdom and to purchase unto yourself some things that your Heavenly Father perceives as very valuable. Let me tell you how valuable. How valuable is it for you to have an income of some kind? You say, I can't make it without it. Here you go. That's how valuable these things are. Because what this wisdom purchases, you're going to have in eternity. Now, how valuable is that? Very. So these are the kinds of things that we're going to begin looking at. And one of the things, by the way, that we're going to be looking at, we're going to be purchasing is, I don't want to call it a name, but you understand that as you go through this education, angels at some point are going to begin to know something about you. They not only know something about you, they're watching you. And because they're watching you and they know something, they have high expectations for what is going to be happening with you when you finally get your glorified body and you get installed up in the heavenly places. Now, I'm trying to think of a way to say this where it really can become a reality to you, because this is one of those things that really gripped me. Because I understand, now we've talked about some of these verses before, but I understand that the major impact, the major focus that we're supposed to have is on those angels in those heavenly places. That's the major area of our impact. Now, it's not the only area. We also have an impact on men. We do. And you say, but see, and that's all most people know. Oh, we're carrying the gospel to people, and that is important. I'm not minimizing that. But what we have done when we only see that is we have X'd out of our impact area the primary place of impact. And the reason it's hard for us to wrap our mind around that is because you won't hear about it or see it while you're living in this body on this earth. You will only see the result of your impact after you get up there. But the Bible is going to tell you about an impact that you are going to make on the angels, both good and bad. And I want to talk to you about the impact that it's going to make on the good angels first. Because those angels know what it is that we are supposed to do as sons when we get up there. They understand that we're going to deliver the creature from the bondage of corruption. And they understand that their world right now is going to change completely when we get up there. Let me give you an illustration of this. And there's some things you have to know in order to get this. Just like if you're going to go from here to Abilene, normally, how would you go? Okay, by car. Okay, and you would get in that car, and what would you... You'd get on the interstate and you'd go up. You know what? There's a path that goes to Abilene. Now, even if you fly, because someone's going to say, oh, well, I'm going to make this point. If you go anywhere, you can't just go off willy-nilly through the countryside, driving through fences and across properties. That's called trespassing. There are paths and ways for you to go. And I'm using that terminology because up in the heavenly places, when angels move about, they don't move about just however they want to go. Listen carefully. There are ways and paths that they must follow. Now, the reason you don't see it that way, and no one would on this earth, is because after this earth, here's the earth, around this earth, stretched out into the heavens, this is not going to be to scale. But God has placed this buffer zone here. I'm just going to call it that because we're not really studying this. I'm just trying to tell you something so I can talk about those ways and paths. In this buffer zone, that is sort of a no-fly, for angels, no-fly zone. That works, doesn't it? You could think of it as a demilitarized zone. This is a zone that God has said to the principalities and powers, those that rebel with Lucifer, you're not going to carry on any activity in this zone. And he created that buffer. But out here, in those different places, I'm just putting these places of principalities and powers, out here, when they move around, there are paths that they have to follow. Now, I'm going to tell you that when angels come to this earth, even though there's a buffer zone, there is a way that they are to come to this earth. And they understand it. So, even if you look up and you go, like we send a ship up to the moon, but you understand, in that zone, that's not very far to the moon. Or in our solar system, that's not very far. I mean, it is for us, but I'm saying that as far as the buffer zone goes, and I'm going to tell you there's a reason God created. Does anybody know why God created this buffer zone here and told angels, you're not going to operate in this area? Let me just say it to you like this. If we were ever, and we won't. But if we were ever able to send people out beyond this zone into the area that is occupied and controlled by Satan's forces, you put yourself in a very dangerous position. And God means for that buffer zone to be there for that very reason. And that's why He has restricted their activity to outside that zone. Because I'm going to tell you that if He hadn't done that, this would be incredibly dangerous. So, in doing that, now, by the way, someone's listening to this, do you remember, I may have mentioned this to you before, but do you remember when Daniel prayed and he was asking God for an answer to a prayer, and he fasted for 21 days, and the angel that came to give him the answer said, you know, I was coming with the answer. God heard your prayer the day you prayed and sent me with the answer, but I was held up for 21 days. Do you remember by who? The prince of Persia. Was he talking about the Persia on the earth? No, he wasn't coming through the earth. He was coming through the heavenlies. Because what you understand, I've told you about this before, and by the way, in that bare bones study that I'm doing that you've only gotten the first disc on, we're going to talk about the 24 divisions of God's government in the heavenly places. 12 of those pertain to the earth, and 12 of those pertain to the heavens. But together they make 24, but they're all out there. In other words, there are 24 areas out there in the heavenly places that have a direct connection to the earth. And 12 of those that have a direct connection to the whole rest of the universe. Now, that prince of Persia, you remember, why would he be held up by the prince of Persia? Because if he's traveling through that territory in the heavenly places, there's a path he has to follow. And he can be intercepted and he can be stopped. What does the angel say? That Michael had to come. And he says, and that freed me up to come here. Now, Michael is a principality. He's the only one of the 24 principalities. Daniel says he's the only one that didn't rebel with Lucifer. So as a principality, he has power. So he comes in, and now he's disputing with the prince of Persia. They're actually fighting. This angel comes down, he gives Daniel and he says, but I have to get back and fight with Michael because someone else is coming. Anybody remember who that was? The prince of Grecia is coming. So you know what? These guys are teaming up now. You got this guy and this guy. This guy's, you know what? They're going to team up and they're going to try to... Angels not only can't just move however they want to move or blink and suddenly they're on the earth. They have to follow paths and ways. And right now for them, in their own realm of the heavenly places, it's dangerous to travel. You're going to encounter conflict and opposition. Now let me just make one more analogy. I was listening to the news this week, and do you know that so far in Mexico, 53,000 people have been killed down there. mostly in drug-related violence. But there are plenty of innocent bystanders getting caught in the crossfire. And so they tell you, if you're going down there, you need to really be careful because you've put yourself in danger. Now, I can remember as a kid when we drove to Monterey, stayed in a hotel, and spent a week's vacation there. And, you know, my folks had shopped through the little markets and stuff. People set up their stuff, you know, and it was you know what? Drive to Monterey today. You know what's going to happen? You're going to get carjacked. Do you know that if you rent a car in Texas, they're going to ask you if you're planning on going to Mexico, and if you are, you're not getting a car. Because that car is going to disappear, and they know it. If it's got U.S. tags on it, and you say, well, but we're not involved in the drug traffic. The police will shake you down. You understand it is corrupt. Now, I'm not trying to throw Mexico under the bus. Those people are good folks, and they don't want their country like that. But let me tell you what, the drug trade is just ruining everything for them. Here's my point. What do you think would be in the minds of those people if you had the power and the ability to walk into Mexico and make all of that nonsense go away so that anybody could travel anywhere at any time and know that they were doing it safely? Do you think, you know what they'd be doing? They'd be dancing in the streets, wouldn't they? Brother says they'd be worshiping you. Now you know what the angels are looking for. Because they can't do that. And when you come, when you get up there, you know what you're going to do? You're going to change that whole atmosphere of what it's like in those heavenly places. Because right now it's ruled by evil. Right now it's controlled by Satan. Right now it's darkness. And you're going to bring light to darkness. You're going to bring godliness where there was nothing but evil. And you're going to bring peace to a place where it was only conflict. And I'm going to tell, look, you understand that, well, I was going to say something about the flood that didn't just judge the earth. God judged the heavens with regard to that thing too. But not to get off on that, the point I'm trying to make to you is those angels know what to expect of us when we get there. And we're going to be equipped to do that. And they're going to look, and you know, they're looking right now. And as you get your, now Wanda's going, ooh, you know, okay, you know. But look, you know what? This impacts me. I want it to impact you. That you realize that, yes, we're making an impact here, and we want to do that, but the real impact is being made up there. And we're just talking about the impact it's making on the good angels right now. And I'm going to tell you now, those angels are looking, some of those angels are looking, as you go through this education, some of them are going to look down and they're going to see Bob Butler and they're going to say, we want that guy. We see where he is in this. We want that guy. You know, some others are going to go, no, have you seen what he eats? No. Well, we can't afford to feed that guy. No, I'm kidding. Picking on Bob. But they're looking. No, really, they'll look. Or someone else will say, we want Gloria. Well, we have heard about, by the way, you are going to get to a place where you are known by them. And they're looking at you and they're saying, and they're actually, that's the one we want. By the way, when you go to the judgment seat and you're going to get handed whatever it is you're going to be seated in for eternity, the angels know that out in the far reaches of the creature, know that instantly. Let me just touch on something that we're going to talk about in this bare bones study on the heavenly places that we've never talked about before, and that's communication in the heavenly places. That communication is of such a nature, you know, here, radio waves are pretty fast. Sound waves are pretty fast. My voice gets picked up here, it gets shipped over, you know, to a wireless deal and translated out the speakers, but it's all so fast it looks instantaneous. And even if you notice the news reports, there's a guy in California and a guy in New York. It looks like they're talking at about this, you know, the same time. Now, but you can get far enough if you bounce a signal off of a satellite and then bring it back down, and that signal has to travel 40,000 miles. You know what you get? A small delay. A small delay. And what you're seeing is, it's not quite instantaneous. It just moves so fast that in short distances, it looks like it. But when you're talking about, oh, let's say it like this. When we sent the Mars deal out and it was sending photos back, when it sent it out, it took it 8 minutes to get here. That's a bigger delay. The communication in the heavenly places, we'll study the details of it. I'm just telling you about it now. The communication in the heavenly places is different. There's no delay. It's like those of you who play the guitar, it's like when you strum that string, thank you. I kept chord was in my head because I don't ever think of the strings. When you strum that string, your finger up on the fret, as that string vibrates, that whole string feels that vibration. And that's the way communication works with the angels. They hear instantly on the far reaches of the creature what goes on the other side. And as soon as Bob gets placed for some place out in that creature, those angels instantly know. And let me tell you how excited it's going to be when where you're going, when they find out you're coming, knowing you are an educated son or daughter that is coming to do what they have been waiting to have done all this time. They're going to greet you with a hero's welcome because you are bringing the very thing they have been waiting for. Righteousness is finally coming to their realm again. Godliness is finally going to be the order of the day. Light instead of darkness. I mean, the freedom to move through their own realm is finally going to be theirs again. And they're going to look at you and they're going to go, and that's the one that did it for us, right there. Now, you understand all that you have is going to be because your Father has offered you this great opportunity. But, and you know what, and all that will sort out. But they're going to look at you, and I'm going to tell you, when you show up, you ever see those old movies that when the army comes back from war and they're all lining the streets and they're just throwing stuff in the air, you know? Look, when you show up in the heavenly places, they're lined up. I mean, they're going to be greeting you and talking to you like you've never seen anything like this, because that's what you mean. I need you to get it in your head that there is something out there waiting for you. And that's just a piece of the glory, by the way. That's just a piece of it. But you have to understand, they're looking at you and they're saying, we can't wait till those guys get here. Now, what about the bad angels? You're making an impact on them too. Because every time you make an advancement as a son, they are taking notice of it. Now, I'm going to show you something. I hope this... No, I didn't... Oh, when I said they were talking... Here's the next verse. When I said they're talking about you, look at Philippians. For our conversation is in heaven. You say, well, I was talking about our life. Well, right now, you're on the earth. Aren't you? But there is a conversation taking place about you, and it's in the heavens. But that comes at a point. Would you like to see what that point is? All right. I hope it's the next verse. No, let's just do these so that you see them. This is the excitement that they're having. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth. The earnest expectation. You know what that means? They're looking for it. I'm not exaggerating anything here. Waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. What? Wait a minute. Aren't we sons already? Well, what's the manifestation of the sons of God? You know what that is? That's when you show up in the place of your vocation declared afresh to be a son, and now you're taking that over. It's just like, remember, Jesus was declared to be the son when he was born, and the angels, remember, appeared to those shepherds and all that bit, and then the wise men did their deal. But when Jesus shows up to start his ministry, do you remember what it is down there at the baptism at the River Jordan? What does that voice out of heaven say? This is my beloved Son. Now he's manifested him for his work on this earth. But wait, after his death, burial, and resurrection, Jesus says, all power is given unto me, both in heaven and in earth. And when he comes back at the second advent, he will be declared a son again. The stages of the declaration of a son. Yes, you're a son now, but you're going to be manifested when you've come, you know what, you've gone through this education and you get up into those heavenly places, you'll be declared a son, and the creature is expecting something when you get there. Verse 21, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. You're bringing liberty to that place. Do you understand how oppressive that realm is? Not the third heaven where God is, but in the angelic realm of that second heaven. It's not a place of liberty. It's a place of oppression and danger. Verse 22, for we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. To this day, this thing is groaning, waiting for your manifestation. Now, let me see this next one. Here we go. This is where I was going. Romans 13:2. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Do you notice where that is? Look at where that's located in the curriculum. Romans 13. Let me show you something. Well, I'm running out of room, aren't I? Let me just buy a little room right here. Okay. Romans 8, 14 to 39. Look, no. 15. That is your sonship orientation. When we got there, you notice we went back because there was a bunch of things that was supposed to, all of this we're covering now about honest attendance and interactive learning, that's supposed to have already been in your mind. And when you got to Romans 8:14, you were supposed to already know this is what's coming. This is what this is going to be about. But we didn't know that. So what we had to do is we had to stop and go back and fill in the gaps so that we really do get oriented to our sonship. Then, in Romans 8, 16 to 39, you're going to get your sonship establishment. This is what it's one thing to get oriented to your sonship. It's a little different thing to get established in it. That's what that is for. Then, in Romans chapters 9 through 11, this is part, but here's the thing. What I'm about to show you now, we have nothing in the book of Proverbs about. And you'll know why. Because in Romans 9 through 11, I hope I'm writing large enough for the camera to pick this up. But in Romans 9 through 11, he is now going to discuss to you for the first time in the book of Romans the dispensational change. He's going to explain what happened with Israel's program, why it got interrupted, how long it was interrupted for, what's going to happen in this new dispensation that you are an adopted son in, and what to expect when this is over and Israel's program resumes. He's going to lay it all out for you so that you understand that, so that the errors that so many preachers fall into today you won't fall into. A lot of people today say, God's all through with Israel, now He's just working with the church, and He's forever through with Israel. He is not forever through with them, and if you read those 3 chapters, that becomes abundantly clear. Paul says it outright in several different places in those chapters. But he also is going to be sure to tell you, don't be thinking about taking Israel's doctrine into this dispensation. That won't work. Then, in Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, this is a checkpoint. And you're going to have to pass that checkpoint and say yes to your Heavenly Father before you're going to go any further. Because then, getting lower and lower here. I don't even know if the camera can pick this up. Can you see this? Okay. In Romans chapter 12, verse 3, all the way through to the end of the book, this is your education to make you a simple son. That's the way this lays out. Now, why in the world wouldn't we'll find orientation in Proverbs, we'll find establishment in Proverbs, we're going to find this checkpoint in Proverbs, we're going to find a doctrine for Israel's program. That's what this is, doctrine for the dispensation of grace. But in Proverbs, you will find doctrine for the Israel program. Why won't we find this in Proverbs? That's because it was the mystery. They couldn't know about it. There's when people go through and they say, I can't find that in Proverbs. Of course you can't. It was hidden from the foundation of the world till God revealed it to Paul. Of course. Okay, now, by the way, I know you're looking at this and you're saying, well, can't we just jump down to here? Because just like you didn't know this stuff, and I couldn't just jump you past Romans 8:14, do you realize how much is tucked away in here that you have to have when you get here? All right, now wait, don't lose the point. These 3 commitments to your education right here have to be in place before you get to here. They have to be. That's why you're warned about them in your orientation. They're going to be accomplished in your establishment. That's when you're given the doctrine to make these a reality for you. So that by the time that you get to this checkpoint, you really can say, remember what it is here? I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your... What's the very first thing that's going to be on the docket in your education? Learning to what? Think like God thinks. The renewing of your mind, that you may prove... that ye may prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. You know what? When people say, I want to know God's will, God says, hey, you got it backwards. You're going to prove that. You're going to be the one to demonstrate that. As an educated, adult, adopted son. Just the opposite from what we always thought. Once you pass this checkpoint, and you won't say it to me or anybody else, you'll say this to your Heavenly Father. Once you get past this checkpoint, He's going to say, all right, you've got everything I need you to have. Open your book to chapter 1, verse 1. I'm talking about the textbook. It's really going to be Romans 12:3. And he says, and now I'm going to begin to educate you in those 4 judgmental, decision-making skills that are given to rulers. Wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity. And when you start in Romans 12:3, you're going to be taught godly wisdom in a number of ways. Not just one way, but in a number of ways. And when he's through with that, there won't be a single area about godly wisdom that you won't look at and say, I know exactly how to look at this. And then he's going to take godly justice, and he's going to break that down into 3 components. And he's going to teach you about justice. He's going to teach you about dealing with people in your life that don't necessarily like you. They just look at you and go, I don't like you. You've never done anything to them. They've just chosen they don't like you. He says, you want me to tell you how to deal with that? I'm going to tell you how to deal with that. And then you're going to look at how to live under justice, how to live in the government that I'm under. And it doesn't matter if you're in the United States of America or China or Iran. He is going to give you something in godly thinking about justice that is going to tell you, here's how I want you to look at this, and this is what I'm after. And you're going to learn about 3 areas of godly justice. And then he's going to go to judgment, and he's going to teach you areas of godly judgment. And this is all in your thinking. And then he's going to go to equity, which is how to treat other people. That's why you get that part about how to treat a weaker brother. That's over in the and you would expect that equity would be at the end of the book of Romans. You would get that in that last part. And indeed you do. You get it just in that order. I'm just giving you a simple breakdown of this book, but I'm trying to tell you there are things in here that's just going to make your eyes pop. When you see it, you're going to go, wow. Now you say, but wait, we have to wait till Romans 12:3 before we can start thinking like God thinks? No, he's already been doing that. That's just the education proper. Listen, are you justified unto eternal life? Are you secure in that? Well, guess who you're thinking like when you think that? That's the thinking he produced in you through his word. Are you dead to sin? Have you been made in your new identity in Christ alive unto God? Are you sons? Do you know why you think that? Because he taught you to think that way through what he gave you in his word. All we did is go through it. He wrote the word. That's what convinced you. It better be. If you go, I got convinced because he's just so happy when he teaches. Well, you know, I mean, I appreciate that, but that's not it. He's already teaching you to think like he thinks. And he's going to teach you this doctrine is going to change even more. This dispensational change is going to settle that issue for you, just like your justification and your sanctification. He's going to give you a checkpoint, and when you say, yes, I am ready, based on the mercies of God. And when you get to Romans 12:1 and 2, you'll know what those are. To present my body as a living sacrifice. You know what a sacrifice is? When you think of something being a sacrifice, what do you think of? Okay, self-denial. Offering it. When you think about the sacrifice itself, do you have thoughts about that being an enjoyable process? You're going to offer your body as a living sacrifice. You know what will be in your mind? That whole list of things that Paul gave you back in Romans 8, where he talks about what God is and is not doing in this dispensation of grace, and what he's going to get. Oh boy, you know, I'm just thinking in my head about this stuff. Oh no, I can't get off on that. If I get off on that, we'll never get back. He's going to be doing this thing all along. Okay, now here's the point I'm trying to get back to. Let me get back on track. How much time we got left? Oh, good, 50 seconds. We got plenty of time. Wonderful. I'm loving it. What page are we on? I have no idea. I left the notes so long ago. We're on page 4? Oh, good, oh, good. You only have 14 pages, so we'll get this no problem. You know what? It always happens this way, though, doesn't it? Okay. I'm glad. Ruby said, that's good. I just want that to go on the record. Ruby said that. I've got that filmed now. Here's why you have to have this. The thing's going to beat me. This is why before you get here, these three commitments have. That's why these three commitments have to be in place before you start the education proper. Because if it's not, something is going to happen to you to knock you out of the saddle. They have to be in place. They're the minimum. Actually, you're looking at that and saying, I don't know how it gets any more than that. Well, it doesn't. But that's what you have to have. Because when you get to Romans 12:3, you're going to embark on something that is at the end of that first part, is going to ask you in the next chapter. 12:3 starts the education proper, in godly wisdom. And when you get that, he's going to tell you in 13:12, let us put on the armor of light. Everybody talks about the armor of God in Ephesians, and I'm going to just be honest with you. There's not a person in this building that can put on the armor of God, because that is something that only an advanced son can do. I'm not there. I don't know anyone there. I'm telling you, if you want to think you can, that's up to you. I'm telling you, I can't put it on. I don't know how. All my life I've heard preaching about that. Put on the helmet of salvation. Who didn't know they were saved? Give me a break. So how did you put on that helmet, and what does that do for you? Well, it's a symbolic thing that means blah, 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 blah. It's just more junk. Take the shield of faith. We talk about, oh, he's just giving you an analogy of armor. That thing is supposed to be doing something very specific for you, and we can't do that. I know that sounds badly. You've even heard me talk like we can before. I've come to the realization I can't. In fact, I dare you, put on the lot. You want to do the easy one? It's the armor of light. You get to that before you even get out of the book of Romans. Anybody want to put that on for me? Anybody want to explain to me how you put on the armor of light? And I'm talking about a biblical explanation here, not something you make up in your head. Let's hear it. I'm not angry about it. I'm just trying to make a point. Because I know you're with me. There's somebody's watching this DVD going, well, I can put on the armor of light. Okay, well, let's hear it. Let's hear the 1, 2, 3 of how to do that. And what, by the way, what is that piece of armor for? You say, well, it's to protect me. What is it, like a magic amulet? Really? If I read this thing right, when the adversary comes against you, God's not putting his hand between you and the adversary. So where's the magic here? I'm just going to ask. Okay, I'm sorry. Carried away. I'm calmed down. I'll bring this to a close. We'll take a break. And Nice Mike will come back and start the second session. Let's think about, I know you're thinking he doesn't exist, I know. I keep talking about him like he does, though, hoping he'll buy into it. Let's talk about light. Why is it called an armor of light? Here's the question. You have lights in your home? Why do you turn on a light in your home, Bertha? So you can see. Now, wait a minute. This armor is something you're putting on. It's a garment or an armor of light. And if you're putting that on, what does that now mean for you? Now you're being seen. Guess who's looking at you? And that's why if these three commitments aren't in place, by the time you get here, when you put on that armor of light, all of a sudden, let me do it like this. Satan's looking out over this world, and you know what? It just looks like darkness. And all of a sudden, in Texas, in West Texas, a light comes on. Bink! Do you know where your eye is drawn? That's exactly right. Right to that light. And you become, for the first time, under the specific target of the policy of evil. And if you don't have that kind of a commitment to this education, He is going to knock you out of the saddle, and you're going to walk away from this just like the Corinthians did. And you're going to say, I don't really want to do that. You know what? 2 parts of my sanctification, dead to sin, alive to God, good enough for me. That Son part, I don't think I need that part. Although you'll notice that in the book of Romans, in the first 8 chapters, he takes care of those first 2 things. He does the whole rest of the curriculum through 2 Thessalonians to deal with your sonship. That's a big piece. It's not meant to be separated that way. It's meant to be part and part. Matter of fact, you'll never put those first 2 parts into total, proper use apart from your sonship. When you put on the armor of light, so, you know, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, it sounds like it's not so much armor, it's just making you a magnet. But it is an armor, but it is meant to say, and guess what? Now I'm wrapping it up, I promise. I'm wrapping it up. Remember I said there's a conversation going on about you in the heavenly places? That's the first time that the good angels look down and go, hot dog! Somebody got to there. You know what they're hoping? That you're going to have the commitment it's going to take to follow this curriculum. Is God's grace going to be sufficient? It is. But are you going to have to make a decision about sticking with it or dropping out? You are. And they're going, and the adversary and his angels are going, uh-oh. And here's what Satan's thinking, and I'll tell you plainly. He's thinking, when that light comes on, it's already gone too far. This is too far. So we're going to have to do something about this, and we're going to have to do it quick. And we're going to put that light back out. Because everybody in his realm sees that light. And here's what God is saying. I want you to start with that, and I'm going to advance you on as a son to where you're actually going to say to the adversary, bring it on. You're going to get to that place. Now, those are words now. One day they'll be a reality. Because the impact you're making, you will now have a better understanding that what's going on down here, right in this mundane class that we're carrying on week after week, is now become the subject of conversation of both realms of angels. And you're going to be known and talked about and looked at, and your Father is going to say, I need you to carry this further. I need you to keep going. And you're going to become, rather than a target, you're going to become a fearful thing to the adversary. He's going to look at you and he's going to... Remember what the devil said when the sons of Sceva threw the demon, or trying to cast out demons? They said, in the name of Jesus whom Paul preacheth. Remember that? And the devil answered, well, Jesus we know, and Paul we know, but who are you? You know what? That process starts for you right there in Romans 13:12. And your Father is so wise to know that if He doesn't orient you to these things, so that when you get here, those things actually get established in you. Before you get to here, you're going to be starting a process that's going to culminate. You're going to start in godly wisdom. You're going to put on armor light, and all the devil's going to say is, now we see him. Boink. Now we see him. What I would really love is, instead of one little light coming on in Texas, I'd like for a bunch of lights to come on. No, it just means we're all targets. But yeah, misery loves company. I mean, there's a lot of little phrases there. But I would like for a lot of lights to come, because you know why? If you just got one little fire to put out, that's one thing. When a lot of fires break out, and look, those folks that are following us, And then fires break out in Glen Rose, another fire breaks out in Fort Worth, and another breaks out in Wisconsin, and another breaks out and you got fires going everywhere. You know what? If you're the adversary, you're going like, wait a minute. Things are going pretty good here. All of a sudden, I'm busy. You know what my intention is? Work him to death. Make him so busy he can't keep up. Now, those are words. But we have a long ways to go. I just want you to see where that is going. When we come back after the break that you thought was never really going to happen, I'm going to talk to you about what else are you going to be... By the way, you'll purchase that. I'm going to show you the merchandise, and we're going to go through some things that you're going to purchase with the wisdom that you're going to be